Welcome to episode 2 of the Gold Line Stand. I'm here with on camera Kenyon and in audio only. Krish is here in spirit, I guess. What's up, Kenyon? How you doing
I feel
tonight,
like
buddy?
that's correct. I'm
Yeah,
doing great,
he's with us in spirit.
just trying to, yeah, in spirit. I'm just trying to make it through, I'm trying to get to the work week, you know how it is,
Oh yeah, got to get through that daily grind, right?
for sure.
Krish, you're where? Argentina, Colombia, something like that.
No, Portugal. Not Portugal.
Portugal. Yeah, down in Portugal. Look at you,
Yeah,
big ballin'.
yeah there you
Oh,
go.
there.
We
Oh,
we
look,
going
he's
international, yeah.
look at that.
I
And
always say Chris is fly.
And look at that hat. Look at that hat. Look at that hat. Look at that man right there is something else. Uh, first, first Kenyon. I don't know if I'm sure you saw the news today. A little bit of indoor news, real quick. Your Warbirds. I see the shirt there. Yeah,
Yeah, I
West
had to
Texas
represent
Desert Hawks.
the
What do you
West
think?
Texas Desert Hawks. I like it,
Yeah,
I back Zach up 110%. So anything he do, hey, I'm right there with him.
nice.
But
Okay.
I know some people don't like the Desert Hawks, so
You know, to be
I ain't gonna
honest with you,
point the
to me,
elbows.
to be honest with on my end, like I like the name. I mean, I don't dislike the name by any means, but I do. I do understand some of the people's gripes about everything Hawks. This Hawks, Seahawks, Nighthawks, Battlehawks. But on the flip coin for me, it's like everything that's war. Like why does war have to be involved with everything? And I know that a lot of it's based off military stuff, but I don't know. Both names weren't big. I wasn't a big fan of both names. Less so the uh, Warbirds, to be honest, than the Desert Hawks. But I'm just a I don't know. Maybe I'm just a hater. Who knows?
I mean, I like the Warbirds. What was the other one that they were going through? It was the Dirt Devils.
Yeah, Dirt Devils.
Yeah, the Dirt
Hey,
Devils.
I'm good with that too. That one I like.
I mean, I
That one I
voted
don't
for the
mind.
Dirt Devils, but hey,
Yeah.
you got to give the people what they want.
Yeah, definitely for sure, no doubt about it. All right, tonight on the Gold Line Stand, we want to discuss. We're going to discuss injuries. I want to talk a little bit about the preseason injuries that we've seen. The NFL kind of implemented a new. Um, I don't know when it was. I think it was probably coming out of COVID in 2020. They implemented a new rule basically where any type of camp injuries, scrimmage injuries, or even preseason injuries were basically handled by leaving on a cart or leaving on a backboard for pretty much anything and everything as far as neck related was concerned, which I think is awesome. But at the same time, are some of these injuries that we're seeing kind of being overblown or kind of feel like they're much bigger because of this? Chris, we'll start with you. And what's your take on that aspect of it? Is it something that the NFL may have done too much of, or is it just the right amount?
No, they did way too much. They're tired of getting sued constantly, so they have to do something at the end of the day. But, I mean, I saw JSN got hurt. He had a broken wrist. So, I guess for any non-head related injury, unless it's like the legs, so non-head and legs, there shouldn't be a card. There's no need for a card at all, in my opinion.
Okay, that's fair. I think that that's a pretty solid point there. Kenyon is as a player, an active player right now. Is it something that you like seeing when it comes to the NFL, kind of making these changes to try to protect the players as much as possible? Um, or again, is it one of those things where it makes every injury that's taken place kind of feel like it's much bigger than it actually is?
I mean, I can truthfully appreciate what the NFL is doing, and I can see that they're also trying to cover their own hide due to all the recent lawsuits and whatnot. But I wouldn't go for it because when you bring out that cart, that's when it's serious when they bring out that cart. I think that brings out like a false sense of fear just to see like your favorite player or your favorite rookie get carted off onto off the field. But that's just my little take on it.
Hmm. Well, I mean, the only primarily the main reason why I wanted to bring it up was because the Joe Burrow injury a few weeks ago. He went
Mhm.
down a non-contact injury, ended up just being a strained calf, but they had to bring the card out because based upon the new protocols that the NFL put in place, anything that deals along those lines has to be brought out in the sense that they have to leave the field in the cart just in case it's something more serious. And there was a lot of chatter that I was looking at as far as the optics were concerned with stuff like that, and it being kind of a turnoff when a major player such as Joe Burrow does go down with an injury that fans are like, oh, like I don't want to watch this anymore because they're already talking about how quote unquote sissified the NFL is. I mean, it's easy to talk about that being that way when you're on your couch, but yeah,
Yeah.
the quotes, the air quotes, um, but it definitely adds a certain optics. And I was just curious about some different perspectives on that because from where I sit in my stance is I actually appreciate it, and I'm not a player anymore, but I appreciate it for what they're trying to do for the players. But there's definitely ulterior motives for them protecting their hind asses for sure.
For
Like
sure.
it's definitely got to be an ulterior motive there for the NFL to do stuff like that and get to that point. Uh, Now, with that being said, some of the major injuries that we did see. I mean, Krish, we'll start with you because one of your Patriots players, Isaiah Bolden, rookie cornerback, went down with an injury. Luckily and thankfully, out of the hospital. The following day, was able to travel back with the Patriots teams. What are your thoughts with some of these injuries that we've seen? Because it was also there was a quarterback, John Walford, went down.
Yeah.
Thankfully, he also is okay and was able to return with his team as well. What is your take on these major injuries that have taken place, or injuries that looked or appear to be major, to the point where we saw a preseason game get canceled? And obviously, Damar Hamlin last year kind of really set the precedence for a lot of that stuff. Uh, but is it something that we're going to see more of? And what do you think constitutes to some of these injuries like that?
So what's funny to me about the Isaiah Bolden injury is, how many people are scared. So I live with my grandparents, and they heard about it on the news. And the funny thing is, the day after I had flag football tryouts, and one of the reasons I missed my flag football tryout is because they were nervous that I was going to get hurt. And they said, we're not going to give you a ride for you to get injured. And it's funny to me because I think it's so overblown a little bit. You know what I mean? It's a bad hit. Obviously, it's sad to see him go down. But the way they replay the hit over and over and over and over again, it's like, okay, we need to stop. We need to step back and we need to realize people get hurt. It's part of the game. Football's a violent sport. But there needs to be more awareness of this is why this player got hurt. And so I just think they handled it great. The medical staff handled it great. They stopped the game. That's all that needs to be said. Isaiah's doing great. He should be back. I heard in 3 weeks, which seems kind of soon, but
Hmm.
I think that there needs to be more awareness of this is why a player got hurt. It's not because oh, they maliciously hit him, or football is a tackle sport. It's because he got hit in a certain spot. So I just wish we could see more of that.
Yeah, and that's kind of a fair point, especially when it comes to it. I will commend ESPN last year with the Damar Hamlin situation. They stopped showing the hit after they realized the severity of it and what happened for sure. Kenyon is as a player, I've seen a lot of chatter with stuff about uh, ex players coming in and being like, it's part of the game, a lot of this stuff. But I did see some ex players have kind of come forward and said that a lot of these injuries, especially on the defensive side, have led because of lack of technique. I don't know if you play defense or not, or if you've played defense in the past. I'm assuming you have. Um,
Yeah.
it, do you see a lack of technique with this? I mean, we're talking the NFL. We're talking the highest level of professional football in the world, uh, and we're talking about lack of technique. Do we think that we're resting a little bit on the laurels, or some players are resting a little bit on the fact that they're trying to get that highlight reel hit, or what? What do you think is contributing to some of these injuries?
I mean, I could never say it's lack of technique, because on the defensive side of the ball, that's where you really got a lot of your freak athletes, because they got to contort their body into different positions just to go and get the ball. So
Right.
I would say it's more of like they're more freak accidents than anything. Yeah, you probably got you got a technicality here and there on technique, but it's still like the high level that they're playing in. These are like the most technically sound players in the world. So how much technique is technique is he really lacking?
Mm.
So I don't know. I normally chalk injuries up to accidents, and I don't like to get real deep into it because I don't like to think about players' injuries. I feel I'm superstitious. I
Yeah, for
feel like
sure.
it's like
Yeah.
I feel like I go down that road. But yeah, no, I would never say it's just lack of technique. That's just
Yeah.
crazy.
I thought it was kind of a little bit of outlandish out there from that perspective of it being, a lack of technique aspect kind of things, because it definitely was not. I mean, none of it. I mean, even the Bolden, injury did not have a lack of technique there. It was just he was going for a tackle. There was a cut made late, and he just, he got hit by his own man trying to make a tackle from behind. So, um, football's a violent game, and you're going to see these type of things happen. I was just curious if either of you guys thought that it was a specific like a specific reason, or possible uh, explanation for what was happening. So that's why I wanted to get your thoughts on that real quick. Anyways, we don't have to spend much more time on that for obvious reasons. Everybody here um, does not want any players to get hurt, obviously, and it's not something we want to speculate on. In the perfect world, everybody wants no injuries to take place. I can guarantee you that. So, um, with that said, the next thing I do want to talk about, though, is something that it rubs me the wrong way, and I'll go on my rant in here in a little bit. The running back market in the NFL is devalued tremendously by teams. You have fans, fantasy players, whatever you want to call them, on both sides of the fence here. And I'm going to make it real clear before we even get into this. I'm on the side of the players here. I'm not going to make any qualms about this at all. I'm not going to hide where I am in my thought process, but I'll get on this in a whole second here. Kenyon, I'm going to start with you just because you are an active player in some sort of professional level. Um, what's your take on why running backs are so devalued in today's game that to put it in perspective real quick, I'm going to give you some quick numbers, Kenyon. Hunter Renfrow is expected to make more money this year than Christian McCaffrey. Not overall in the contract, but this year alone, he's expected to make more money than Christian McCaffrey. Corey Davis is expected to make more money than Derrick Henry this year, just to put it in perspective. Allen Robinson is projected to make more money than Nick Chubb this year. So we're talking second contract running backs. We know that the NFL market, there's a cliff for running backs, and again, it's in quote.
More air quotes.
But
Cliff.
well, and a lot with what's gone on with Zeke and Dalvin Cook this year, there's been a lot of speculation as to why those markets, and obviously now with Jonathan Taylor, who's now requested a trade from the Indianapolis Colts. Why do you feel that the running back market is so devalued? Whereas some of the wide receivers that I just mentioned to you, or wide receivers 3, 4, and 5 on their teams, are making more money than these running backs.
Man, now I got two different sides. Like, as an offensive lineman, I truthfully can't understand why this problem is even about. Because if you don't have a good or semi-decent running back, you can't move the ball, basically, period. Like, you can't keep throwing the ball. You got to set yourself up. Now, I can understand it because of the 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 day and age of football that we're in. Everybody wants to see the ball in the wide receiver hands. Want the great catches, the acrobatic catches, and I can understand that. And that's like what helps put butts in seats. But there has to be a line somewhere because you're devaluing a essential part of your offense. Some of these running backs are carrying their teams to greatness. Nick Chubb, I'll say Nick Chubb because I'm a Brown fan. If we didn't have Nick Chubb, I don't know what would go on. And you can laugh at it as much as you want, but if we didn't
I'm
have Nick
laughing.
Chubb, I don't know what would happen.
I'm laughing because
So
it's truth, bro. I'm laughing because that's a very, very factual truth right there.
so I don't know. I don't know what has to happen for eyes to be open that these players need to get paid. And I mean need to get paid. They are as valuable as any wide receiver, any specialty player you got on your team, or more.
Yeah, man. And Chris, before I come to you with the thoughts, I want to also throw this little statistic out there too. Annual average. Now this is average, obviously. Pay salary for running backs is lower than punters. Just want to throw that out there. Chris, based upon that being the situation, what's your thoughts on this, and why do you think that running backs are devalued at this situation, especially considering what we know of some of these players?
They're devalued because of injuries, and it comes down to that. Running backs have the lowest shelf life in all of football. Unfortunately, you look at Todd Gurley. I was talking to my friend the other day, and I was like, "Man, do you remember Todd Gurley? Like, we used to play him in Madden, and now he's not even in the league." I just remember that name, and I remember how big he was. Obviously, that's one player who doesn't dictate the whole league, but NFL teams need to start getting more creative. How can I use this guy on special teams? How can I use this guy in the receiving game? Cordell Patterson, perfect example. Obviously, he started a kick return receiver and then switched to running back, but, using guys in creative ways. I look at the New York Jets, and they have right now, they have Dalvin Cook, Brees Hall, Michael Carter, and who's that fourth guy on the roster?
Right? Israel Abanikanda.
Yeah, and what's going to happen?
Israel Abanikanda, yeah.
He's going to get cut. Unfortunately, he's so talented. He was one of the most talented runners.
They're going to carry 4. They're going to carry 4. He's not going to get cut.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Unfortunately, Zonovan Knight's going to get cut.
And that sucks too, because he's really talented as well.
He's super talented, yeah. Bam Knight's super talented.
So all 5. So it's like you have to cut the losses, but I just it's so risky. Going out and overpaying. Like the Jets got a deal on Dalvin Cook. They really did. And if I'm an NFL GM, I'm looking at this from a GM perspective. I'm going to keep doing this as long as I possibly can.
Okay, that's fine, but even from a GM perspective and from a team perspective, it makes sense to take a running back that has injury issues and has had a history of problems staying healthy and staying on the field, and after 4 or 5 years, kind of being like, here's your walking papers, you stayed on your rookie contract, we're going to draft somebody else. It makes sense from a standpoint money-wise, right? Here's the issue, and this is where my rant is going to start, okay? Because you bring up injuries, right? First and foremost, I want to throw out that running back by committee is an excellent thing for the league. It's an excellent thing for running backs, and it's an excellent thing for the league. Now, here is where the kicker is. So the history of the football, it started off, there was no passing. It was strictly just run games. So it was fullback, run back, H-back, wing back, whatever you may be. There was no wide receiver. Somebody came along, threw a wide receiver out there, and it was, oh, okay, 1 wide receiver, excellent, but we're still going to run the piss out of the ball. Then it was like, well, we could throw a 2nd wide receiver out there, et cetera, et cetera. Now we're at the point where we're at, right? And fullback is now gone, right? Tight end has kind of played this 4th wide receiver role. Like very rarely do you see a traditional wide receiver like tight end like Jay Novacek. So running back by committee is going to be one of those situations where it is going to be the new wide receiver because it has to be. Because without a run game, you can't run play action and you can't run RPO. That eliminates how many percentages of offense do you think, Kenyon? If you can't run RPO and play action for offenses, how many does that eliminate for without it being one dimensional?
At least half.
I think it's probably closer to probably 80%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's very few offenses that are straight up just passing constantly like that. Even some of these spread offenses and air raid offenses still rely a little bit on a run game to be able to come in, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you really think about it, you know. So without that, you're eliminating a good chunk of your offenses. You could probably run an air raid or a spread, well, probably more of an air raid, and get away with it not having an efficient running game, right? Because that usually is the pass sets up the run. The problem is your running backs are touching the ball between 250 to 300 times a year. They are the number 3 on the list of people that touch the ball more than any other offensive player. And they're only number 3 because the center is number 1 by default. The quarterback is number 2 because that's what the ball goes to. The running back is literally the one person that touches the ball more than any other player on the field. A wide receiver catches 85 passes, and we're like, great year. Great year. That's awesome. A running back runs the ball 222 times, and we're like, this guy probably should have ran the ball 250 times to get his 1,000 yards. That's a problem. That's an issue. So it really comes down now to these teams taking the running back by committee and using an RB1 and RB2 on the field at the same time. It's going to help shelf life, but it's also going to curb the expectations that your elite players need to touch the ball 250 times a year. Krish, in the first 4 years of Zeke's career, do you know how many 300 plus carries, not just touches, carries that he had in the first 4 years he was in the league? Do you know how many years he did that?
I'm gonna go with 3 years.
All four. All 4. He touched the ball over 300 times. And we are now at a point where it's year, 7 that he's in the league, and we're going, Zeke's a shell of his former self. Well, yeah. He's run the ball over 1,000 times into defenders at full speed his entire life, in his entire 20s. Yeah, the cliff is going to come. So running backs by committee is the best approach for this. And I don't know if the running backs are ready to really face that truth, because the bell cow backs are no longer a thing. It's not a thing anymore. So you need to reduce your touches, but be efficient. And the people that are going to be the most efficient in the running back situation, those are going to be the guys that get paid, because you have to do it. Could you imagine the Tennessee Titans without Derrick Henry?
Not one bit.
Like, the team already can't throw the ball for the most part. So
Yeah.
could you imagine if they didn't have Derrick Henry the last 2 years, where that team would be? They lost 7 straight last year, and Derrick Henry still went for like 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 yards or whatever it was. But you're going to tell me he's worth less than Corey Davis or Allen Robinson? No offense to those guys, because they were great players, and they're, for the time period that they've been there. But you're telling me 44 passes that Allen Robinson caught last year means he should get paid more than Derrick Henry?
Not a bit.
Like, that's my issue. Like, the way that the NFL has approached this, and teams have approached this, is they've just used and abused a guy and then basically said, you're replaceable. LOL. It's very much a corporate style of thought process, because in a corporation, as everybody knows, they view their employees as replaceable. You're all replaceable. We can find somebody to come in. And they've zeroed in on running back this time, right? Because you're replaceable at any given point in time. It's a supply and demand issue in the NFL. And the best bet is, like Krish said, is to get creative, but not with like special teams. Get creative and get 2 running backs on the field at one time. Because your second running back is going to open up so much more for your first running back, And that third wide receiver doesn't do anything for your top 2 wide receivers, in my opinion. I'm sorry, because if you take a look at the way the offenses are, if you're a slot guy and you're productive, you're a wide receiver 2 on a team. Who cares
Yeah.
about the other outside guy, right? Just my thought process on that. I think running backs should get together and really focus on promoting this RBBC style of play, the running back by committee play, but also working with offensive coordinators and finding a way to get both of the guys on the field at once. And I'll tell you right now who I think is really good with that is Eric Bieniemy in Washington. Expect Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson both to be on the field a lot this year together. You know, it's really going to be interesting to see if that's the approach that the NFL takes, but pay your players, man. LaDainian Tomlinson was one of my favorite players of all time. Could you imagine LaDainian Tomlinson and Marshall Faulk playing in today's game? Like, the pay discrepancy is so freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like what the Falcons are going to do this year with Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. Unless they use Bijan as a receiver, you know?
Well, Bijan could be used for pretty much anything and everything. I mean, let's be honest. The guy is a stud running back. But here's the problem that I'm having, Kenyon, and maybe you can attest to this. But are you concerned about Bijan's longevity? Like, because are the Atlanta Falcons going to be one of those teams that's going to shove the ball down his throat 250 to 300 times a year?
I mean, that's normally the default. If you can't pass it, you gotta run it. So I mean, if they can't figure out their pass game and they just have to straight run the ball, they're gonna have to pay that man what he is worth. There's no way that I'm a running back and we can't figure it out on the perimeter of the field, but I have to take on this huge load and I have to get hit like make 20 plus times a game. It that's abnormal to me.
Could you imagine, Kenyon, for the life of you running you right now, as you said, running full speed at other guys that are either bigger than you or the same size as you, 300 times a year, and then you get hurt, and then somebody like Chris or I come along and say, "Well, you can't stay healthy, Kenyon." How would that make you feel? Like that's the big thing.
You're already deteriorating your running back by telling him that. Like you have to be positive when it comes to the injury thing, regardless, because I feel like the negativity that's brought along with injuries is just that prolongs it because it turns into a mental thing after that. And now you got a running back that's coming off injury. That mental game is already messed up due to the fact of the injury, and he's being told that he's potentially washed up or he's going to be up out of here because he's replaceable. I can understand, like, you know what I'm saying, the business side and everybody is quote unquote replaceable, but at some point, where's your loyalty?
Yeah.
You know.
And to answer that question, it's Drake London. That other than that, there's probably not pretty much anybody else on that squad. So.
I forgot about it when I wrote that, but yeah, you know what I mean.
And Kenyon, your running back in Cleveland, as a Browns fan, Nick Chubb made a great point. He brought up that it's the one position where the most production means the least results as far as payment wise is concerned, because it does come up that, oh, you might be worn down, oh, you have been hit too many times, or whatever it may be, but you're asking this guy to carry the ball 250 times. You have a wide receiver like Corey Davis, who has never reached 100 yards, 100 receptions in a year, getting paid more than these guys. Like, there is a huge discrepancy problem there, in my opinion. You know, and again, that's nothing against Corey Davis, but he's never touched 100 receptions in a year. It's the perception that somehow Corey Davis is more valuable than a guy like Nick Chubb to an offense, and that's mind-boggling to me. Absolutely blasphemous to me. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts out there that might be watch this or whatever, and we would love here at the goal line stand to hear your thoughts on this, because the running back debate's been a hot one all summer long, and to me, it just, I don't understand why the NFL is where we are at this point in time. I don't have much more because we were going to have other topics. Unfortunately, as you know, our fourth Justin was not able to, come on tonight with us. So we're going to save that for another episode at a later time. Maybe Chris will be back from Portugal and have a little more to be able to say in this situation. But before we go tonight, Chris, do you have any final thoughts on anything that we discussed as far as the injuries are concerned, or even the running back situation, or even maybe just something else that comes out with the NFL here as we get closer to the season?
Yeah, I'm really, really concerned about the Patriots offense. I watched the Commanders game, and let me tell you, that made me feel really, really bad about what we have on our list. You guys,
boy, that was a game.
And it was.
It was.
I feel so worried because I don't think Mac is going to be. I love Mac. I'm on Mac Jones. But Belichick and Mac Jones' relationship is at the last leg. And I think Zach is going to get in there, as soon as Mac struggles. So I watched that, and then I watched the Commanders, and it's a totally different situation. I get it. But I feel like the Commanders really gave Sam Howell the keys to success, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. If the Commanders do go through another rebrand, by the way, and they decide that they can't bring the Redskins name back, I hope they do something with Wolves, like Wolfpack or something, because then that way we can have the Wolves howl as a slogan. You see what I did there? Haha, look at that.
Yeah, I see what you did there.
Yeah, the Wolves howl. That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Kenyon, do you have any other final thoughts here on anything that we've discussed tonight, or any other NFL stuff that you want to throw out there maybe?
Not really. All I gotta say is, if anybody out there watching, pay your running backs because he needs it.
He does. He does. I'm on the side of that, bro. I'm on the side of that for sure. So I'm without a doubt on that one. I don't have anything else. I said my piece. I kind of shortened my piece up a little bit. It could have been probably a lot longer, and I probably still could be talking about the running back thing because I've been talking about it all summer long. Pay your running backs, man. Use your guys wisely. Temper your expectations for these guys, and start using them smartly, because otherwise, man, you're going to be giving out on a bunch of talented players. But until next week, this is Goal Line Stand, episode 2. We got episode 3 coming out next week. I'm sure that for Kenyon, for Chris in Portugal, and for Justin, who's not here. Until next week, guys. See you later.
I'm a game changer.
Peace.
I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer.